Houbigant is a French perfume house established in 1775 by Jean-François Houbigant of Grasse at the age of 19 years old. The brand originally sold gloves, perfumes, and bridal bouquets. In 1882, the house launched Fougère Royale, which is the first fougère perfume in the world, and the parent company now is Paris Group. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, and today we're going to talk about Tabac Nomade, which recently was launched, and I was extremely excited to get my nose on this new release because of the tobacco note. When I started with the fragrance games, one of the first notes that I fell in love with was the tobacco note. I remember I kind of started exploring a private blend, and the first time that I smelled Tobacco Vanille, I was just blown away by that fragrance. But as time went by, I started buying the fragrance or perfume notes, singular on their own, some natural and some synthetic. So I got tobacco note, I got blonde tobacco note, I got tobacco blossom note on their own, and I smelled them and I realized that Tobacco Vanille or even Herod by Parfum de Marly, they don't really smell like tobacco. They smell more like cinnamon, spicy notes, or cloves, and they're powdery and kind of floral, kind of spicy and fresh, and some of them are warm, but really they don't smell like tobacco. So I realized that the perfumers were kind of trying to create a feel to make the wearer think that they're smelling the tobacco leaves, the fresh tobacco leaves that were soaked in vanilla or something like that, to kind of make people think of like the tobacco pipe. Again, I believe that some perfumers would definitely agree with me, because when they smell that, they probably won't say that this smells like tobacco, like Parfum de Marly, Herod, or Tobacco Vanille. They would say it smells more like cinnamon, something powdery, cloves-like, or smells kind of like black tea or something like that. So they would probably go that route mostly, instead of saying like it smells like tobacco. Now, again, when it comes to Houbigant, because they're so famous for creating timeless and classic fragrances, like Fougère Royale, that's been around for centuries. So I was like, I definitely have to find out about Tabac Nomade and see what this one smells like. Now, the perfumers behind this scent are Antoine Lee and Luca Maffei. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Houbigant is famous for crafting timeless, enduring fragrances that never go out of fashion. These are the kind of scents you can cherish in your collection forever. They are must-haves for any fragrance enthusiasts, including Tabac Nomade that we're going to talk about today. Now, Tabac Nomade is a very interesting tobacco scent. It is an evocative fragrance that transports you to the untamed desert. It weaves together the richness of tobacco with exotic saffron, crafting a warm, hypnotic, and luxurious scent reminiscent of the desert's wild essence. All right, so before we go ahead and spray this, I wanted to mention when I got this fragrance was like 3 weeks ago or a month ago, and I kind of went ahead and unboxed it, and I judged it too quickly because I wrote about it and I said this kind of reminds me of a gentleman's cigar kind of a club because of the tobacco note. And I realized that that's not the case after spraying this for many times on my skin and on paper, on clothes, and kind of testing it out. I was like, okay, this is definitely not what I was thinking it is. And that's exactly the reason why I don't review, which I don't really do review. I don't explain or give lessons on the fragrances right away. I take my time. And as you can see, I don't really review fragrances because I'm not here to tell you go ahead and buy this, or oh my God, this is fantastic or phenomenal. I'm here to tell you that how this fragrance was made, the notes, and all the accords just correctly to set the benchmark, because a lot of reviewers, they just come ahead and they just say a bunch of stuff that mostly is not true when it comes to the actual fragrances, and talking to the perfumers, they don't agree with those. Sometimes your take even is false. You have to talk to the perfumers and they kind of tell you, no, it doesn't really have that accord that you're thinking. I mean, it's your take This is how you feel when you smell it, but it's not really what we use in here. So my videos are pretty much how the fragrance was created to give you guys the accurate data of the structure of the fragrance. Now, with that being said, I spoke to Antoine Lee and Luca Maffei for many hours, going back and forth, talking about what kind of a tobacco note they used, what was the major other notes that influenced the tobacco note, and how did they achieve that spiciness, and why they chose it to be so spicy and not your typical boozy or smoky type of a tobacco that people would be expecting, and so on. So with that being said, let's spray some of this and see what we get. Just their typical classic bottle, a little bit darker with a golden cap instead of silver. Tabac Nomade is a very powerful type of a scent. It's very beautiful, very classy, very sophisticated, just what you would expect from Houbigant. Very sophisticated, very powerful kind of a scent. Also, some like to say it's a beast mode type of a fragrance. So again, anyone that's looking for something that's very long lasting and it projects crazy, Tabac Nomade is the one. Now, getting back to the actual fragrance, initially when you spray it, you can realize right away when you spray it, when you smell in the air before you bring it close, you can realize that it is a complex tobacco because it has a dual personality. When it lingers in the air, it has that sweet, you definitely can smell some sparkling, fresh facets, which comes from certain notes, which we'll get to. But then when you bring it close, right away, you get hit with this very spicy note that can come off as kind of pencil shaving, or to some might come off as smoky, that they might be like, oh, this is so smoky, but it's not a smoky fragrance. It is a very spicy type of fragrance because of the saffron notes. Now, Tabac Nomade opens up very opulent with a velvety blend of bergamot, roses, and a big dose of spices, creating a warm yet sparkling opening. It does have a short-lived citrusy opening, and I don't want you to think that when you spray this, you will smell the roses. Like they say, wake up and smell the roses. It's not like that whatsoever. You cannot cherry pick the roses, and it's not like Tabac Rose by BDK whatsoever. So do not compare them at all. Completely different. So you actually will get hit with this velvety blonde tobacco note right away, but the rose here plays as a backup accord for the blonde tobacco, which complements the tobacco really nicely. Now, it is very important to understand the concept and differences of blonde tobacco note and tobacco note. These two are definitely very different from each other and can create a different accord and aura in a tobacco fragrance. In other words, they sound the same, but they create or deliver different results in perfumery. Blonde tobacco in perfumery typically has a milder, sweeter, and lighter scent compared to regular tobacco note. The main difference is that blonde tobacco imparts a lighter and more refined aroma, while regular tobacco notes can be stronger, richer, and sometimes smokier in fragrance compositions. Now, as I mentioned earlier, rose and bergamot are not so obvious in Tabac Nomade. They are here to help and support the woody tobacco structure. The perfumers use just synthetic rosy elements for the rose, but the bergamot is natural from Calabria, Italy. Again, as I mentioned earlier, when you initially spray Tabac Nomade, besides the fact that you get that beautiful blonde tobacco on the opening with that sparkling fresh facets, which comes from bergamot and rose, which, by the way, rose creates this lemony, powdery, woody facets that complement bergamot really nicely, that create this backup accord for the blonde tobacco, but you're also right away are welcome with this very spicy, or I should say warm, spicy note, which is from the spicy notes on the top note, which some might see it as pencil shaving or smokiness, but it's really just spicy notes that you get on the opening, which is from certain stuff that hasn't been mentioned in the notes, which we will get to. Now, as the fragrance opens up more, of course, the blonde tobacco comes forward and gets even more accentuated by the tonka bean. Tonka bean is a major key component besides saffron in this fragrance that accentuates the blonde tobacco. Now, tonka bean can be tricky in fragrances because of the amount that has been used by the perfumer. If tonka bean has 1 to 3% of coumarin, then the fragrance will have more of green grassy aroma to it. But if tonka bean absolute is used, which contains 90% coumarin, then you'll get more of a sweet tobacco almond facet, which in Tabac Nomade, you definitely have tonka bean absolute at 90% coumarin, which is from Venezuela. Yeah, and then of course you're greeted with this big dose of saffron, which is the star of the show, which has this bittersweet, leathery, soft, and intimate with an earthy base note to it, which by the way has a warm, spicy, and slightly floral aroma, if you will. While it is indeed spicy, it also carries sweet and earthy undertones, making it a complex and aromatic note used to add depth and richness to fragrance. So how I would like to describe it is that the saffron becomes the focal point of Tabac Nomade. So if you think of saffron as the sun and think of the blonde tobacco as the earth circling the sun, that's exactly what's happening here with Tabac Nomade. Saffron becomes the focal point, so strong, so powerful, just like the sun. And then you have the blonde tobacco, the mild, beautiful, soft blonde tobacco lingering around the outside of saffron as a sillage in the air. So it is very well structured, and it is a very interesting, unique kind of a tobacco, specifically because of the usage of the big dose of saffron in this fragrance, because as we go on to find out that there's some also leathery notes in this fragrance, you find out that the saffron is one of the key components in this fragrance besides tonka bean. Tonka bean, as I mentioned, supposed to accentuate that blonde tobacco and give it more of that tobacco kind of a feel to the scent. Again, the saffron plays a major key here in the scent. It not only helps with the spicy notes, it also helps with the leathery facets in the base as well. Yeah, if you guys ever decided to get this, definitely try this. When you spray this and let's say after half an hour or so, come back and smell the bottle. And you can definitely smell all the top notes, that sillage that I was talking about, that blonde tobacco, you can definitely smell that. The tonka bean, those fresh sparkling notes on the top, which is as a backup for the blonde tobacco, which is bergamot, and the rose notes, the synthetic rose notes, which they create this lemony, woody, and powdery facets, which you cannot really cherry pick, but you definitely can smell that, which is really interesting. But of course, as we get to the heart of Tabac Nomade, it becomes very spicy. The spiciness is coming mainly from the saffron and the clove, and there is no real smoky notes in here whatsoever. Now, as you heard me, I mentioned clove. Now, clove hasn't been mentioned on their website nor on Fragrantica, and I got this from the perfumers. They told me that they use clove, which adds more to the spiciness of this fragrance, and also a little bit of sweetness as well, but in a very balanced and controlled way. So this fragrance is not sweet whatsoever. The sweetness in here is very well controlled. Now, again, I talked about the smoky notes in here, which there's no real smoky notes used in this fragrance, but I think some people might get this perception, which is a false perception, which is kind of harsh to say that, because you're like, well, this is my perception. You cannot tell me that I'm having this wrong perception. I definitely smell it's smoky, but it's really not smoky. I think this perception of smokiness is coming from the cypre oil, leather, and some dark woods that was used in Tabac Nomade. Now, again, as you heard me, there are some new notes that wasn't mentioned again on their website nor on Fragrantica, which the perfumers told me, which is cypre oil. There's some cypre oil used in here, some dark woods used in here, and also a little bit of leather, not a lot, because this is not a very leathery type of a scent. It's more spicy than leathery. And that's why people might have this perception of smokiness, which is not. In the base, you're greeted with a very nice small dose of leather, as I mentioned earlier. So this fragrance is not very leathery, but more like a facet of it. The saffron is playing on both the spiciness and the leather chord mainly. So to break it down for you guys, Tabac Nomade is a very powerful, woody, spicy fragrance on a soft and blonde tobacco structure with hints of leather. And of course, you have a great dose of vanilla in base as well that complements the blonde tobacco, tonka bean, saffron, and hints of rose in the top note. What this fragrance is absolutely not, it is not a boozy scent. So I don't want to hear reviewers to come out and say, this is a boozy scent, boozy type of tobacco. It is absolutely not boozy, just because it has certain qualities to it, which I know some might smell that and come out and say it's boozy. It's absolutely not a boozy tobacco. There's no benzoin used and no black pepper for its spiciness. Again, if somebody comes out and says, oh, this is so spicy, and because it's so spicy, they use black pepper, there's not even one single black pepper used in a Tabac Nomade. All right, so all in all, what you get with Tabac Nomade, it is a very powerful, woody, leathery, spicy fragrance on a soft and blonde tobacco structure. It is warm, spicy, vanillic, and perfectly balanced bitter and sweetness, which again, it's so well controlled, so well tamed, so it's not cloying. As I mentioned, there's like this sweetness and bitterness to it, which is just done to perfection. It has a somewhat citrusy opening, which fades quickly. It is very aromatic, and again, it's very, very spicy. All right, you guys, so that's all I have for Tabac Nomade by Houbigant. Again, to me, this one was a very beautiful release. I really enjoyed this, and I was very surprised, and I knew that they are going to create something timeless and very classic. This is very heavy, sophisticated, grown up, serious kind of a tobacco. There's no playing around here, which I really love. Very classy, very powerful. You definitely get that from it. And as always, this is not a review. I'm not here to sell you this. It's your choice what you're going to do. This is more of an explanation, a detailed explanation and a lesson of Tabac Nomade to perfection, how the structure of this fragrance was created. Now, what you perceive, that's something that is for you, and everybody has their own perception when it comes to fragrances. But this was more what the perfumers created, what notes were created, and what this fragrance was really all about. And that's it, you guys. I hope that you guys get a chance to at least test it, to see it for yourself, to see how you like it, give it a test drive, and see how it works on your skin. With that being said, that's all I have. Thank you so much, and hopefully I'll see you guys soon with another video. Bye.